Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on our recorded version of the Conducted Job Search Workshop. My name is Aaron. We're going to go ahead and get started. The first thing to note is that looking for a job is a full-time job in and of itself. And we know that after 4 weeks of active job searching, we are stressed out, possibly feeling depressed due to not seeing the results of our efforts that we would expect to see. It's extremely important to remember that as each day passes and each inevitable rejection we receive, that we remember that we are not the problem. This is not personal. Hiring managers aren't rejecting us because they don't like us, they don't want us. There are simply so many factors involved that we need to keep in mind as we proceed. Now, remember, I am hoping that in today's workshop, everyone who's listening to this is going to find some tips or some strategies to help you to navigate making your job search more efficient and to lead to making your next opportunity appear as quickly as possible. Now, this workshop is meant to be general information and guidance. Therefore, not all guidance is going to fit you perfectly. Please remember, if you ever have any questions or concerns about a specific area or you feel like you need additional assistance, please reach out to the person who may have referred you to the workshop or to your local IowaWORKS office for further guidance. Remember, neither you nor I can control how fast an employer responds to your application. But what we can do is control how prepared we are after the application and before to do everything we need to do to stay out of the no pile. It is possible. It is something you are capable of doing. We at IowaWORKS want to help you succeed and are able to do so. You just need to reach out to us to let us know how we can help. Now, as I mentioned, it is a full-time job to land your next job. There's a Washington Post article I recall reading that mentioned for each roughly $10,000 that you're seeking in a job, that could take you about a month per each $10,000. So $60,000 a year could take 6 months. Because again, there are too many factors to name that go into this process that you have no control over. So please be patient with yourself. Try to be patient with the employers as well. There are lots and lots of reasons why you might not find out the next steps in the process or to find out the results of either your application or an interview. So slow down, take breaths, find a process. What I mean by that is you need to make sure that you are slowing down so that you can stay organized in such a way that you can have your information where you can easily and quickly get to it so that you can answer and respond to it in a timely fashion. Ask yourself, are you more of a paper, hard copy person, or are you more of an electronic or digital person? What way works best for you to organize your job searching documents? Now, for me personally, I prefer keeping things on a spreadsheet. That way I can organize the information, I can sort it, I can quickly find it. It's very easy for me to do, but that isn't necessarily everyone's preference. So no matter what it is that you're doing, make sure that you have a plan, an organized process. Now, if you were to come into our office for help with your job searching, I would want to see what you have as far as your work search records. If you aren't bringing it in with you, either electronically or paper, then we aren't going to be able to assist you in maximizing your job search. We don't know when or how you followed up on which job, how you are searching for work, which documents you are providing in your job search on a regular basis. So again, if you prefer an electronic organizational style, then consider making sure that you have your email set up with folders that are specifically for job searching. Make sure that you have copies of your master or comprehensive resume handy so that you can edit it as you need to. And make sure that you're saving it with a labeled new title for each time that you edit or apply for new jobs. And if an employer calls you, ask yourself, do you have something handy to write on, to confirm when you applied, to make sure you're jotting down when the next interview is going to take place? Do not waste any time, if you can help it, by not being able to respond, to listen, or to follow up. And lastly, remember to remain professional throughout the process. Every communication that you make should be something that you'd say or do in an interview situation. For example, you wouldn't respond in an interview with a short text-like response, use a lot of acronyms. So don't do that in an email either. Make sure that your conversations, both by phone, by email, and in person, are clear, concise, and professional. Remember, each interaction that you have after you apply is all part of the application process, including interviewing as soon as you arrive at the location. Your interview begins as soon as you get out of the car. Every step you take is all part of the job search. And by keeping an eye on each individual detail, you are going to increase your chances of staying out of that no pile and staying into the yes pile. Remember, folks, there are numerous ways to search for jobs. It can be a little bit overwhelming considering how many opportunities there are, especially in this new digital age. Remember, it's necessary to find a happy middle ground between stretching yourself out in such a way that you become burnt out and you are firing off your resumes in a unorganized way and limiting yourself to just one option. I will never tell you where to go or how to job search or where to find jobs exactly. I just will make sure that you know what your options are and to encourage you to always be smart before you apply. Unfortunately, again, in this digital age, there really is no such thing anymore as a safe job search as it relates to protecting your personal information. So just go into it with an open eye and trust your gut. Now, IowaWORKS.gov does have vetted employers. Our services are free. They are there to help reduce spam or unwanted recruiters trying to work with you. Now, we cannot guarantee that there will be zero bad actors, but we do work on the platform. There are a lot of various connections that we can put together through IowaWorks. We have access to a large variety of job boards, as well as our preferred employer partners. Job fairs are usually made available depending on where your domiciled IowaWorks office is. I can speak for my home office, Cedar Rapids, where there is a weekly job fair every Monday from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. called Grab a Job. Now, that may, again, not be reflective of your assigned office, but go to your IowaWorks events calendar and take a look to see what might be scheduled and go from there. Now, social media is an excellent tool. How to use it for job searching? In a variety of ways. It can help you to find jobs. It can help you to apply directly to the employer, or it might ask you to apply through the social media website as a third party. There are a lot of different ways to do it. I will say generally you want to make sure that you are applying as close to the employer as possible and the places that they post for free, their website, a Facebook page, Instagram perhaps. Also, the gold standard perhaps of social media when it comes to employment and job searching is LinkedIn. Hopefully you are familiar with that. We do offer a virtual job club that focuses specifically on LinkedIn. So again, take a look at your events calendar on IowaWORKS.gov for the next time that is being offered and consider attending it to learn more. Now, career fairs and various other networking opportunities should be absolutely explored. We also have a virtual job club that covers job fairs. But no matter what you're doing, when you're interacting with people on a day-to-day basis, when you're in a job search, you want to be prepared to discuss your candidacy for any potential positions that might be brought up to you just in day-to-day conversation. Opportunities exist in the most unexpected places. So when you're speaking to friends, family, friends of friends, friends of family, keep in mind that networking is an extremely effective way to look for work. I'm sure you've all heard the phrase, it's not what you know, it's who you know. That's referring specifically to the idea that when someone vouches for you, right, for employment at a company that they're working at, you come in sort of pre-vetted. There's a certain level of credibility there, and that can be really invaluable. Also, newspaper ads and radio, those things all still exist as well. They are perhaps less common, but they still do exist. So it might be good when you're on the road to turn on the radio and just keep an ear out for any potential opportunities that might be coming up. Make sure you're reading newspaper, ads, classified section for any potential opportunities. And then finally, employment agencies and headhunters. There are various firms all over the state who may be willing to work with you to help assist you in your job search process. They can, especially in particular fields that are high skilled or require a certain level of certification, they can be very, very helpful to make sure that they're cutting through the noise and getting right to the source because they are working with potential employers pretty closely. Just keep in mind that for the purposes of certifying for benefits, job searches need to be completed by you. You have to apply for those jobs. Someone who applies on your behalf, again, may be a useful thing for your eventual job employment, but anybody who applies for a job on your behalf isn't something that you would be able to use towards your unemployment claim. The most foundational aspect of a job search is doing the work that it takes to make sure that the jobs that you are applying for in the fields that they exist in are the ones that will satisfy not only your financial needs, but align with your aptitudes and interests. And the Career Explorer tool is a great way to do that. You'll need to first log into the IowaWORKS.gov account. Then you'll need to go to the upper left-hand corner under Menu. We also call this the hamburger icon, and click that. And then follow that down to the Career Services link. When you click that, that will take you to Career Explorer. Now, if navigating IowaWorks is a lot for you, or if for whatever reason you struggle to find these, you can always, when you click on the menu bar, you can type in Career Explorer in the search bar, or you can always reach out and get connected with a career planner to help you. You can either do this in person or virtually on a one-on-one appointment like you're doing today on a virtual platform. The Career Explorer page is where you can go for all the assessments that we offer that are there to help expand your view in your job search. These are going to be helpful for people who are both out of work currently and are looking for a new field to jump into, or for someone who is currently employed and is curious about what are the other options out there. If you've been job searching for some time, 1 to 2 months, what better time is there to make sure that you are searching for jobs that match your values, your needs, your wants, your aptitudes, your interests? Also available on the IowaWORKS.gov website is something called the virtual recruiter. This should be basically familiar to anybody who has ever used a job alert system on some of the other more well-known third-party job searching websites. You can set up multiple virtual recruiters at the same time. They'll run for 3 months at the maximum. And you can decide to have them sent either to your message center, or if you're not someone who uses your IowaWorks.gov account very often, you can always have it sent to your email address. This is, again, where we want to encourage everyone here to consider having an email address that is specifically dedicated to job searching. That's going to help you stay organized, help to reduce extra emails and clutter, and help you to make sure that you're staying on top of any outreach that you're receiving from potential employers. When you're naming these virtual recruiters, it helps to stay creative and be specific as to what it is that they're going to be sending you. We'll show you in a little bit about how to go in to your IowaWorks.gov account to set up a virtual recruiter to meet your specific needs. But before we do that, let's go ahead and try an assessment. Why assessment's important? Well, again, they help capture a more individualized job search. They can help you explore other industries and sectors that you may not have considered in the past. And at the end of the day, they can help you to learn more about yourself. We can either do that through IowaWork.gov's Career Explorer, or we can go to onetonline.org, whatever you prefer. So before we look into that, let's go ahead and try an assessment. Now, why should we? Again, these assessments are here to help you to capture a more individualized job search. They're there to help let you see other industries or sectors that may not have occurred to you as viable targets in your job search. And at the end of the day, they can help you to learn more about yourself, some things that you may not have been aware of. And you can do that either through IowaWorks.gov's Career Explorer or through ONET Online. We're going to use IowaWorks.gov here today. Right? As you can see, I've already reached the Career Explorer page. I got there by opening that hamburger menu at the upper left-hand screen and scrolling down to Career Services and then clicking on Career Explorer. Now, if you do not feel like navigating through those links, you can always go to that hamburger menu, and then the search menu, just type in Career Explorer, and it will get you to the same place. There are a lot of different various assessments that you can choose from, but today we're going to look specifically at the Match Your Work Interests. This is one of my favorites. As you can see, there are a couple of different options. You can either choose a mini form of 30 questions or a short form of 60 questions. When you are completing these assessments, what you really want to make sure that you're doing is not thinking about either one of these two things, whether you have enough education or training to do the work, or how much money that you would make doing the work. Just focus, for now, on whether you would either like or dislike doing the work as described. There are no right or wrong answers, and you should feel free to take your time. I would encourage you to complete the short form if you do this yourself, but we're just going to review the mini form here today for the sake of brevity. So we click on the link, either short form or mini form, and this is going to list 15 different interests that cover a wide variety of fields, of industries, of businesses, of work environments, cultures, that sort of thing. As you can see, we already have some answers marked. So under preference, you can either choose strongly dislike, dislike, unsure, like, or strongly like. I will encourage anyone who's taking this to avoid using unsure unless it is a true 50-50. Okay, so if it comes down to it, flip a coin, but before the coin lands, ask yourself, what are you rooting for? And then go in that direction. Selecting unsure just makes it more difficult for the algorithm to give you some kind of actionable result. As we can see, these interests are varied. Build kitchen cabinets, develop a new medicine, write books or plays, help people with personal or emotional problems, manage a department within a large company, install software across computers on a large network, repair household appliances, study ways to reduce water pollution. The list goes on. And for each one of these, we've selected either strongly dislike, or strongly like, dislike, dislike. And once we're filled out each one of these, we can click next to go to the second page. And we'll go through the rest of these. The interests are new. You can see the numbers have changed from 1 to 15 to 16 to 30. And we have some strongly dislikes over here, strongly likes, a little bit of everything, back and forth. Again, there are no wrong answers. There are no right answers, just the answers that speak to you. And once we're done with all the questions that are assigned to us, or all the interests, we'll go ahead and click done, and then we will receive work interest scores. Right? These are the results of the analyzer. You can see it based on these answers. This person is mostly artistic, creative. They value an open-ended work environment. And then next is social, so they like working with people. And then investigative. And then low on the list is conventional, which tracks with artistic, I think. And then there's enterprising and then realistic above that. So this is interesting information. What does it mean? Well, you can click on these links to find out more about these various interest areas. But the real helpful aspect of this is that when you click next from there, it will show you, and you can change the area if you wish to match your regional geographical details. It will list the occupation titles and their correlation to your aptitudes, to your interests. Now, again, this is not saying that you should be, dropping everything and making a immediate switch into anything that's listed here, but it's certainly worth the time it takes to review and consider. Again, are you on a path in your career to find a job that isn't just a job, that is something that's fulfilling for you? If there's anything on here that you think you would prefer to do and that will still keep food on the table, why not take this time to at least think about it? And because we mentioned it before, I wanted to also show how we can go ahead and use the virtual recruiter in a way to set up a job alert in IowaWORKS.gov. So the easiest way I find is to go to the dashboard, and then in the upper left-hand corner, click the hamburger menu, type in virtual into the search bar, and then click the virtual recruiter link. And once that loads, you'll see that we do have a number of existing job alerts. Remember, you can have quite a few of these running at any given time. 3 months is as long as they will last before they have to be refreshed. So we click on the Create a New Job Alert, which will give us the opportunity to select either the standard, advanced, intelligent, employer, education, skills, resume. These search options are all available. We're just going to stick with the standard search for now. We can enter your job title, a company, occupation, or military code into this field, and then your city, state, county, region, or zip code. Then we can assign a search radius around that location. We can select the age of the job as well. I'd like to recommend that we start with the last 14 days. Anything beyond that, you run the risk of the position having been filled or is no longer active. It just hasn't been taken down from this website. So anything newer than 14 days is going to be more likely to result in an active job posting. In the occupation group, you can select any number of options here. These are very broad. As you can see, they run a fairly wide gamut. Protective service occupations, production, personal care, office and administrative support, management, that's management of all kinds, transportation and material moving, et cetera, et cetera. You could enter a specific occupation code if you happen to know what that code is, or you can search for it by clicking on that link. You may also select a minimum acceptable salary. Not every position posted in iWorks is going to have a salary either at a minimum or at a range, but you may, if you wish, dial in your search using this field. You can also select minimum education level, and you can select which sources you want to check. As you can see, there are a wide variety. Preferred employer, National Labor Exchange, and corporate are all going to be standard, and you may add additional ones depending on whether or not you're looking at jobs in these particular fields. You can also select on-site, hybrid, or remote positions if you wish. So if we go ahead and just type in customer service representative, and we go ahead and mark it the last 14 days within the last 25, or within around a radius of 25 miles, that will give us a result. Again, as a reminder, this is a training account, so the results are not going to be reflective of what you will see if you were to do these steps. Okay. So assuming that we did get results, we could go ahead, and if we like the results that we got, we could save that as a virtual recruiter. Okay, we'll name it customer service representative. We can have it run daily. Let's say we don't enter our IowaWORKS.gov account very often. We'll just select email, and that will go right to our emails, and we can set an expiration date. It defaults to 90 days automatically. This is a search criteria verification, and once we're all set, we go ahead and click save, and that will start running overnight. Some additional steps that you can take once you've decided in which direction you want to take your job search is how to maximize your application. We'll talk about that in some more detail here today. One thing that can be helpful if you find yourself struggling with how to connect the dots between the job description and your prior work history is to use a tool called a word cloud generator. You could go to freewordcloudgenerator.com. There is also simplewordcloud.com. Grab the job posting, paste it into the text field, and then click generate, and that will build a word cloud. Now, to those who are not familiar with how a word cloud works, it takes the text that you paste in and creates a visual representation of the frequency and importance of the words within that text field to create some idea as to how frequently or how important those words are, so you can take those words and make sure that they are included and mentioned in your application documents. Here is an example using simplewordcloud.com. I've got a text pasted from a job description from Iowa Workforce Development that we were able to find on governmentjobs.com/careers/Iowa. And once we've got that pasted in, we can generate our word cloud. And as we can see, and in two, these are frequently listed. That's why this website in particular has a nice feature where you can hide common words in English. You can also remove numbers if they appear. You could convert to either lowercase or uppercase, change the space between the words. You can change the color scheme if you wish, whatever you feel is most helpful. And you can identify now that we're looking at the idea of program performance is extremely important. You're going to be dealing with a lot of federal and state data, reporting, technical writing. And so this is an example of how a word cloud can help identify, again, the most frequently used and the most important terms. Here's a list of some common application tips that we find bring the most success to a person's job search. First and foremost, be honest. I acknowledge that there may be some pressure that all of us could feel when applying for a position, especially one that we feel is one that would fit really well, but that perhaps we do not have the preferred qualifications to embellish, to dress up, to enhance our work history. That is something to avoid. This also applies to anything related to a background or a gap in employment, anything that you might be embarrassed about or that you feel would negatively impact you in the job search process. I get it. I understand that impulse, but here's the thing. Something that you admit to might not necessarily be a disqualifying factor in your application. However, if the hiring process proceeds and it comes to light that you were not honest at some point in the application process, I can pretty much guarantee that that is going to be an automatic disqualification and you will no longer be employed with that company. So again, just be honest. Now, that's not to say that you are not able to approximate specifics. We ask that everyone consider adding quantifiable, justified, credible data, numbers, not just what you did, but how well you did it. And the exact numbers might not be available to us if we haven't been keeping track of it. So approximation is fine, as long as it's something that you can justify if asked about. Furthermore, be prepared. This is why we recommend that master copy be created. Okay, if you have a complete work history, you have all the control to be able to remove the parts of that work history to focus in on the specific requirements of any particular job that you might apply to. Now, this next tip is going to apply mostly to handwritten applications, and those are becoming fewer and far between. But if you do fill out anything, and certainly either for digital or for paper applications, spelling correctly is very important. Remember, applications are an example of your first work product. Okay, so you need to make sure that this is being reviewed and that the spelling, that your handwriting, that the font use is all legible and readable. Make sure that you are not applying to any positions that might be open. Applying for multiple positions at the same company is also something to be careful about, because this is one of the great ironies of the job search process. Companies don't want to hire someone who just needs a job, which stings, right? Everyone needs a job, and the longer that we might go without a job, we might be more inclined to just take anything. However, we want to make sure that you are applying for a specific position for a specific reason. Hiring managers want people that want to work for specific companies, for specific positions with specific reasons. Now, to help you to do that and to communicate that to any potential hiring manager, do your research. Find out as much as you can about that company. Do a deep dive Google search, follow them on social media. Make sure that you know as much as you can about that company, their values, their size, their industry, latest news reports. That way you're going to not only know more about whether that's a good fit for you, but you'll also be able to craft better questions to ask upon being selected for interview. Now, I'm going to say this again. I'm going to say it a number of times. I don't mind being repetitive about this because it is so important. Make sure that you are using the job description when you apply. Know exactly what they are looking for. Okay? And that will put you in a better position to give them what they're looking for. And lastly, it's important to not leave any question blank. This goes along with the instruction that we've given to make sure that you're following all directions, that you understand the process that is being described. Any question that is blank cannot be used to score your application. And I would also like to add additionally, if something does not apply or if it's repeated in your resume, do not say refer to resume. Okay, just copy and paste the information. Now, if it truly doesn't apply, then not applicable or N/A would be the appropriate thing to enter. But no matter what you do not leave any of these question fields blank. We've talked about the importance of building a master resume. Also, a master application would be something we would recommend. This is a cheat sheet. It is a way to keep and build a foundation of your job search to help you to work smarter and not harder. It will save you time now and down the road when you feel like you might want to change jobs in the future. We're going to review an example of what a master application might look like. This is something that you can build yourself or you can find templates for online. Just remember that once you build this, just like with the master resume, you should be making sure that you are updating this regularly every time changes occur so that you can collect that information in real time so that it is more likely to be accurate and detailed. This slide shows an example of the kind of application information that you are probably familiar with filling out. Again, keeping this all for yourself so that you can refer back to it in the future is important. So as changes occur, document them, whether you are doing this on paper or if you're doing it electronically. Be specific with your information so that you remember it later. Managers' names, school addresses, all of this stuff. If you're anything like me, it's very difficult to go back and remember that now. But having done it once, I never have to do it again. You should also make sure that you're being honest about the hours that you can work. So really consider this and keep track of that on your master application document. You would not want to apply and state that you can work full-time if you can only work part-time. This gets back to just make sure that you're being honest and not trying to shape yourself in a way that isn't real or accurate. Make sure that, again, you are reviewing this so that it can save you time when you're filling out future applications. Keeping it current saves time down the road. Make sure that your certifications are recorded. For example, if you're certified as a forklift operator and have 10 years experience, make sure that you have all that information down there. You should be listing all the jobs that you've had and when. Again, you may not need it now, but some jobs later may help, depending on which direction your career path takes you. And finally, when it comes to questions of a justice-involved background, that is something we really want to make sure is clear for anyone who that applies to. When it comes to your justice-involved background, or as it says here, criminal background, felony convictions of misdemeanors, that sort of thing, whatever it is, making sure that you know about your background and that you are honest about it can be, I think, the most important tip I can give for you. You could, if you wish, go to Iowa Courts Online. Take a look at that. It's free. And honestly, this is what a lot of employers will do because it is free and so easy to access. Not all employers need to pay money in order to perform a background check on you to find out what might be on a background. So again, making sure that you doing your due diligence to know what would show up if someone were to do the search means that you can be prepared and know what to say and do in that situation. These can be very fraught, be very high stakes, and it can be very anxiety inducing. So knowledge is half the battle. When it comes to how far back you need to worry about, well, that kind of depends. I can say that we hear all the time that whatever happened in your past was so long ago, no one ought to care about it, right? Whether that's 3 years or 7 years or 12 years or 20 years, whatever it is. You may not think it's relevant, but to that employer, it may be. So for anything, no matter how far back it might have occurred, you should be prepared to discuss it. Hopefully the employer is giving you a time frame on their application if it's something they're concerned about so that you know that there might be a cutoff, but if there is no cutoff, assume that no cutoff exists. So when it comes to the application, make sure that you're reading what they're looking for very carefully and only give them what they're asking for. Know your record, be specific, but also concise. If an employer asks what your convictions were, use only the information on the record that you viewed to answer the question. Be as brief as possible. You may, of course, always offer to explain more completely in an interview if needed. I want to repeat this. Be specific but concise. Give them only the information that they are asking for and no more. You should also be focusing on the good stuff too. Everything that you might have done since then, lessons that you've learned, what you've contributed to, self-improvement steps you've taken. You can also mention a couple of resources that are available to help to steady any nerves that a potential employer might have. The U.S. Department of Labor established the federal bonding program in 1966. These bonds cover the first 6 months of employment, and there is no cost to the job applicant or the employer. There is also the Workforce Opportunity Tax Credit. This is a federal tax credit available to employers who hire eligible individuals from target groups with significant barriers to employment. This includes folks with a criminal or justice-involved background, but also includes people who are on food assistance and even veterans. And if we do have any veterans listening to this here today, I just want to stop and thank you for your sacrifice and for your service. Furthermore, our offices have specific career planners assigned called OWDSs, or spelled out, Offender Workforce Development Specialists. These individuals are there to help support you in navigating your job search with your background, to help connect you with employers, and to help with most areas of the process. Every office is going to have access to a specialist, even if there is not one who is domiciled. But you need to ask. You need to be referred. You need to be set up with one. Additionally, we have the Emerge workshop. Generally, those are going to be every other Tuesday mornings. The important thing is to remember that there are resources there to assist you, and you should feel comfortable and free to take advantage of those resources. We've talked throughout this workshop here today on how to get into the no pile and how to get into the yes pile. The difference between knowing what you can control to stay in one and stay out of the other, right? So here's a list of some very common reasons why applications get put into the no pile, for the most part, prior to even reviewing the application information. First, applicants who don't follow instructions will generally not be considered for employment. Make sure that you are reading the job description and every page throughout that process to understand what you are expected to do. Misspelling words. Now, I think it's fair to say that a misspelled word is still generally legible and understandable. But again, when a hiring manager is only taking so much time to do a quick pass of a resume, they're only addressing the most surface level issues that stand out at them. And so a misspelled word can ring that bell in a negative way and make it more likely that they're just going to say, okay, on to the next one. This one's automatic no. Crossing out writing or illegible writing. If you're filling out a application in person on paper, those are reasons why applications will not be considered. If you make a mistake, ask for a fresh copy. Similarly, if you wrinkle or accidentally mess up an application form, spill something on it, whatever that happens to be, you can get a fresh copy. Okay, so it's okay if you make a mistake or if spill something, it's okay to start over. Again, incomplete or blank information. This is related, I think, to applicant not following instructions. But any piece of information that is on there is being asked for a reason. Failure to fill out every field with at least not applicable is going to reflect poorly on your ability to follow instructions and pay attention to details. The use of words such as quit or fired. Now, there are lists, PDFs available to you through your career planner or your local IowaWORKS office for ways to reframe quitting or being terminated from your previous positions. But you do want to make sure that you are not using words like quit or fired. Again, this gets back to misspelling words. These are things that are very easy to recognize and set off that red flag, ring that bell, and can cause you to be put into that no pile before any further or more detailed review is performed. Not signing the application. Again, more so than maybe anything else, if you do not sign the application, it's simply that application does not exist. Now, digital applications tend to be easier to make sure this is not missed because there usually is a final signature page that you have to go through. Okay, so if you are filling out paper applications, however, you have to make sure you are signing that application or you will not get hired. And regarding digital applications, If for whatever reason you do not receive an automatic email confirmation, you may want to question or just confirm that you did in fact digitally sign that application, because not getting that automatic email is sometimes an indication that you may have started the process but didn't finish it all the way through to completion. And then finally, salary requirements. Not being realistic is a reason why sometimes applications can be put into the no pile, and that is difficult to navigate. I'm sure everyone here listening to this has been in a situation where you may have been unprepared either during a phone or preliminary interview when they ask you what you expect for income, and then find out that you might be too low or too high. Worst case, that you don't find out anything, that they simply make a decision based off of your response and you never find out what was the problem with it. Now, there is a way that you can arm yourself with information that can help manage that anxiety and help you to manage those conversations in a more effective way. As we can see here from this website, ONET Online carries a lot of information that can be extremely useful. Start over. Action. And as we can see from this website, ONET Online carries a lot of information that can be extremely useful in your job search process. This is the main screen. What I like to do is go to the occupation keyword search and enter a kind of occupation. It can be general or it can be specific. It may ask you to choose from a number of different options. Select the one that seems to fit the best. And when that comes up, you can see from the sample of reported job titles whether or not the specific job title you're thinking about is listed here. As we scroll down, we can notice that there are a list of common tasks that are commonly associated with this job title. We can use these to prompt our memory if or when we feel like our resume needs to be updated and we're not 100% sure of exactly all of the specific things that we did in that job if it was a long time ago or if you weren't keeping records up till now. We can scroll down through technology skills that are commonly required, various work activities, both in general and in detail, work context indicators, some experience requirements for the job. So if this is something that you are interested in pursuing, this can give you some direction on the kind of training or education that might be useful in pursuit of this career. You can also look up potential training and credential offerings based on your state or your zip code. Potential apprenticeship opportunities may be listed here as well. And another list of skills, knowledge, education, worker characteristics, and specifically interests. I'd like to refer back to the assessment that we completed through IowaWORKS.gov, and we can see that there is a number of these various interests that are assigned to this particular position. Various work values, work styles as well, and workforce characteristics. The workforce characteristics section can tell you information about median wages. We can break that down into specific state wages or even all the way down to the specific zip code. This gives the overall count of employment, some projected growth numbers over the next 10 years, and we can investigate state-specific trends if we wish. One of the best things I find about this in the job search process is to give you some actual data regarding the kinds of wages you might expect to see in your job search in case the job postings you're seeing are not listing them. So if we just go with this zip code, 50511, and click go, it's going to bring up a page that outlines the bottom 10%, the median, and the top 10% wages, both for the area that zip code lies within, the state, and the country as a whole. This information can be used to determine what a suitable or expected or average wage might be for someone in this field. This information could be used to help you know how little you could expect or how much you could request when it comes to wage negotiation. So I hope that this has been useful in showing how much information can be found on the onetonline.org platform. Some other useful tips to help you to maximize the application efficacy and boost your success in getting into the yes pile, staying out of the no, would be using a word cloud generator. What we can do is go to either freewordcloudgenerator.com, or we could even use my favorite, which is the simple word cloud generator. Find a job posting that we're interested in applying to, copy the job description and the primary responsibilities, the duties, any requirements or qualifications that must be in place, and go ahead and open up that simple word cloud platform, paste the text into the box, and click Generate Word Cloud. I like simple word cloud because it gives you some options to hide common words. You can remove any numbers, and you can also change and convert the text to either uppercase or lowercase as you wish. You can change the space in between the words to make it more readable, change the font, bold, italics, or even the color scheme. It's a very robust platform. As you can see, this gives you a great way to visually indicate the most important or the most often used words found within the job description. If you're having trouble identifying the most important words, the kinds of words that you want to make sure you are connecting the dots to in your work history, this can be a great way to visualize that. Now, when it comes to applying for positions, there is no such thing as a one-size-fits-all piece of advice that we can give you. But in a general sense, these are the things that you should be keeping in mind every time you apply for a job. First and foremost, and this may go without saying, but it's important to be as honest and as open as you possibly can. It's not going to do you any favors to artificially inflate or even straight out fabricate any aspect of your previous work history. Anything that you may be worried about disclosing, or anything that you may think would reflect poorly on you, may not actually do so. However, if you do fabricate something or cover something up in your history, then that could be the reason why you'll be asked to leave that position. Now, I will say, you are probably okay to approximate any aspect of your work history. You may not know or remember the specifics, especially if you have not yet started building that master application or master resume history. So if that is the case, as long as you're able to justify it in a credible way, then it's probably going to be all right for you to frame the details of your work history in terms of 10,000 plus or 95% or more. As we discussed earlier, being prepared is extremely important. It's one of the reasons why we encourage everyone to keep that master copy of your work history, both for applications and for resumes. Keep your information handy. Make sure you have something to organize your information, whether that's digital or whether that's pen and paper. To the extent that we're applying for jobs through something other than a digital platform, it'll be important to make sure that you are printing legibly. And no matter what platform you're using, spelling correctly is also extremely important. Remember, an application and or resume is going to be the first example of the quality of your work product. When you're applying for jobs, you should never be applying for general employment. It's not a good use of your time. If you are simply stopping by and saying, hey, hello, do you have any work for me? Try to find places where you can see where a potential employer is actually hiring for a specific position. It's one of the strange ironies of the job search that employers are least likely to hire people who are most in need of work. People who are more likely to want to just accept any position at the company. Hiring managers want to see someone who is actively and specifically interested in a specific position for specific reasons. The jobs that you can find that match that in you are going to be the jobs you have the most likely chance of being hired for. Next, make sure you are researching the company. You should be trying to find out as much information as you possibly can about what the company does, where the company is located, which industries they work in, what are the stated values or ethics of that company, their history. And if you can, find out who works at that company, who's on the executive board. If you can find out who hiring managers might be or HR managers, reach out and go search through LinkedIn. At the end of the day, you should be knowing as much as you can about the company so that you know how to best connect the dots, again, between both your work history and your interests and aptitude. We say this next step over and over. You're going to get tired of hearing it. But the reason we do it is because it is so important. The job description is the best way to know how to tailor your application documents to that specific position. So understand it from beginning to end. Make sure that you are using that job description in your application documents to make those connections, to connect those dots, to spell it out specifically for the hiring manager. If you make it easier for them to understand what makes you a good fit for the company, that is a situation that they will appreciate and they will remember positively. And finally, do not leave any question blank. If a question is listed or included on the application, there is a reason for that. That is information that they want to see. If it doesn't apply to you, just put not applicable or the shorthand version of N/A. But any question that is left blank is an indication that A, you are not able to follow directions, or B, you simply miss critical details. Either way, it does not reflect well on you as an applicant. We've mentioned it before, but I do want to again reiterate how important and helpful it can be to create a quote unquote cheat sheet or master application for every single position that you have held in the past. Now, some of you may have primarily been in contract work, in which case it will probably be most useful to combine those individual contracts into a single work history heading that you could describe as self-employment. No matter what your background is, it can save you time both now and down the road when you need or want to change jobs in the future. As you do so, make sure that you are updating both the application and resume documents regularly as changes occur, as positive impacts in your job are recorded, so that you can include that in future job searches. We'll go ahead and take a look at what a master application might look like. These templates are readily available on the internet, and if you'd like, you can email workforce.iowa.gov to request a copy. Remember, as changes occur, make sure you are documenting them, either on paper if you're a paper person or electronically/digitally. You want to be as specific as you can so that you don't have to try to remember it later. I'm sure that if you've been applying for jobs, you have struggled to remember managers' names or high school addresses. Applications will often ask for this level of specificity. You want to make sure you're being honest also about the hours that you're able to work. It doesn't do you any good to say that you're willing to work full-time if actually you're only able to work part-time. Any certifications that you've earned should also be included on this. For example, if you were certified as a forklift operator and have 10 years experience, but perhaps that forklift operator certification is expired, it's still okay to include. Again, this should be for every single job that you've ever had. You may not need it now, but some jobs later may help, and you'll want to be able to pull the information that's relevant while cutting away the information that isn't. And the last thing that's important to keep track of, or at least be aware of, is any kind of justice-involved background. If you are someone who has a criminal background or a conviction record, or what we prefer to call it as a justice-involved background, then there are a number of things that you may be worried about or anxious over. However, this doesn't necessarily have to be a barrier that is not able to be overcome. Make sure that you know your background and be honest about it. That's the most important tip that I can give. Again, just disclosing something that you may not wish to share, even though it is requested, isn't necessarily going to prevent you from being hired. But if you don't disclose it and they find out later, that could result in you being asked to leave. Now, the Iowa Courts Online website can be a great way to freely look up anything that might be on your criminal background. And honestly, this is what employers will often do because it is free to see. Not all employers need to pay money to find out what's on a background through a background check service. So just being aware means that you can be prepared and know what to say or do when this question comes up in either an application or in an interview. We hear all the time from applicants that whatever happened a long time ago, whether that's 3 years or 7 years or 12 years. And they might think that it's not relevant, but to the employer, it may be. Some employers will thankfully tell you exactly how long they want you to disclose, but some leave it more up in the air. And if there is no timeline, then it will be best for you to be completely open and disclose everything that might be on your background. So when you are approaching this topic, make sure that you read the question carefully and only disclose exactly what it is that they're asking for. Know your record when you do so. Be specific but concise. Again, if an employer asks you information, use only the information on the record that you viewed to answer that question. Be as brief as possible. Be sure to offer to explain more completely in an interview if needed. You're also going to want to make sure that you're listing all of the good stuff too. The time sense that whatever happened, happened, and what you've done, what you've contributed to, what you have learned from that experience. Additionally, there are a couple of programs that might be useful to make sure that you're bringing up during either an application or an interview. The U.S. Department of Labor established the federal bonding program in 1966. The bonds cover the first 6 months of employment, and notably, there is no cost to either the job applicant or to the employer. Additionally, the Workforce Opportunity Tax Credit, or WOTC, is a federal tax credit available to employers who hire eligible individuals from target groups with significant barriers to reemployment. You could be eligible if you are on food assistance or have a justice-involved background, or even if you are a veteran. Additionally, our offices have specific career planners. They're called Offender Workforce Development Specialists, or OWDSs. They are there to help support you in navigating your job search with your background, to help connect you with employers, and help with most areas of the process. Every office has access to a specialist, but you're going to need to ask to speak to them so that we can get you referred and set up with one. Finally, we do have a workshop offered virtually called Emerge, EMERGE. That workshop is typically offered on Tuesday mornings once a month. So please check your events calendar for the next time that workshop is being offered so that you can make sure that you can attend that in the future. This is probably, again, more useful for paper applications, as digital applications tend to have ways to prevent you from proceeding until the application is signed. But if you do not sign an application in person on a paper copy, they will not be able to use that application to make a hiring decision. It simply won't be used 100% of the time. You have got to make sure that you are signing your applications. On a digital platform, one way to make sure that any application you think you signed but actually didn't finish would be to make sure that you're receiving an automated email confirmation. Almost every single time that you apply through some sort of platform like IowaWORKS or Indeed or the company's website, you will receive an automatic email confirmation that they received it. If you do, hold on to that, put it in a separate folder or save it onto your desktop or whatever you do, print it out, keep it in a file folder. Finally, listing salary requirements that are not realistic can be a very easy way to get into the no pile. This is extremely stressful. We do have a workshop regarding negotiating successful job offers through the virtual job club, but that is not offered as often as it might be helpful for everybody here. But remember, we went to look at the ONET online platform. That is where you can go to determine whether or not your salary range is realistic for the industry, for the position, for the area that you're in. I highly encourage everyone to review this at some point in the application process so that you get a good idea and a strong data-based argument for whatever salary expectations or requirements you have for that position. No matter what you're doing in an application, either online or in person, these applications are a test. You need to treat them as such. I mentioned before that these are considered the first example of your work product. It allows them to judge your credentials, your competencies, the ability to fill out forms accurately, to stay focused on details, to understand directions. And additionally, they also might be timed. So make sure that when you are on your online application platforms, you are ready to apply from start to finish. Online application profiles can be sometimes difficult to navigate, but this again is part of being organized. Make sure this is part of your foundation of your job search. Make sure you're keeping track of your online application profiles, keep them updated, keep them consistent with your resume, using whatever tools helps you the best. Now, you may have apps available that you could download to help, Google platforms are also a good way to do that digitally, but whatever it is, again, keep it handy. Keep track of your username or passwords. Make sure you write the date on which you changed your username and password for helpful reference checks. Especially if you used an older email and now you use another one, that can also help for the recovery of your profiles. Unfortunately, these days, there's simply no such thing as a safe job search at 100% certainty, especially not online. So when you are applying online, you will be best served to verify the legitimacy of a company or recruiter before submitting any online application, including your personal details. Make sure you are submitting only the most updated resume that you have available. Make sure that you keep a copy of the resume that was submitted along with the job description and any other company information that you might need if you are selected for an interview or if you just have any other interactions in the future. And finally, make sure you are researching your salary expectations to align with the industry, with the position, and with your geographic area. As we wind down this workshop, this is a good time to go over some basic online application tips. Attach a cover letter with your resume. Now, this may be controversial, and some positions won't expect it. Some industries also won't expect a cover letter. There are cultural differences that exist. But to the extent that a job application does not tell you not to submit a cover letter, this is something to consider. If nothing else, it can help set you up apart from the other candidates for a position. And at its very best, it's a narrative document that can help connect the passionate, emotional reasons why either this position or this company is important to you. Building that connection in a recruiter's head can be very helpful to putting you at the top of any pile that they're considering. Again, proofreading is extremely important. Make sure that you are proofreading or that someone else that you trust is doing so. It's not only misspellings you have to keep track of, but it's awkward phrasing, it's tense usage, it's first-person perspective usage, it's consistency in the formatting, all of which are going to be very important in your applications. You need to prepare for any technical glitches. Imagine a situation where you are applying for a job and that job posting is scheduled to expire. And for whatever reason, you are putting things off and you're coming down to the last minute. And you have a couple hours before the job posting closes, but you're ready to get done. And so you go into the website, you fill out your application, you upload your resume, you make sure that everything matches, right? You could fill out a short quiz about your minimum requirements or qualifications. And then all of a sudden, your internet crashes or the website crashes. And now you've missed that window. So have backup options and try to get things done before the last minute if you can. Part of proofreading is making sure that your consistency counts. Be consistent both internally within the documents and between them. Your application, your resume need to match. I understand that it's frustrating to be asked to fill out information in one place and then again in another, but there's a reason for that. And no matter what the reason is, it's something that people look at and make decisions off of. Again, you need to understand the risks of applying for jobs online. Ask yourself, does this seem legitimate? Is this something that I would expect a legitimate company to be asking me to do? One of the main ways you can tell that a job posting is not legitimate is if they ask you to send them money or they ask you to receive money, deposit it, hold on to it, and then send them money back. That is not legitimate 100% of the time. There are other things, though, you need to keep an eye on. So again, you need to just trust your gut. And if you need help or if you want someone to take a look at a particular situation, we have career planners available through either the Title III program or you might have them through RCM or ZIA, Promise Jobs. There's a lot of resources available to you. Always make sure you keep a record. The resume that you used, the job description that you applied to, dates, times, who you spoke with, questions that you asked, questions that you were asked, everything. We did mention social media in the first half of this workshop. We know that this is an integral part of the job search today, and frankly, it's not going to be leaving anytime soon. I'm sure that we're all going to see more technology incorporated into the application process and job searching as the years go on. But as it relates right now to social media, what you want to make sure you're doing is keeping your profiles private as much as possible. Be aware that anything that is searchable on social media is something that a lot of hiring managers are going to look for. So be careful about the photos that you're using or that you're making public. Are you showing kids, grandkids? Are you telling information about a large family, small family, personal issues that you wouldn't necessarily want a higher manager to know? Are you showing them something that you don't want to bring into your interview? If so, remove it as long as you are searching for a job. Now, the flip side of this is that social media can be a great way to look for work. We've said it before. You can find out more information about companies and positions through X, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, other places as well. There are individual websites that are published by local newspapers that provide classified ads locally, for example. So again, do not limit yourself to any particular job search platform, even if it might be a little bit dangerous or a little bit maybe scary, such as social media, depending on your comfort level with it. Specifically, LinkedIn is sort of the, I suppose you could say, premier or flagship social media platform that people are looking for work and focusing on developing professional connections. We do have a workshop about LinkedIn. It's part of the Virtual Job Club series. If you want to learn more about LinkedIn, that would be a great resource for you to explore. Another way to search for work is by considering attending career fairs. These may feel old-fashioned or out of date the more that we look for work online. However, there is still a place for career fairs or job fairs in the job search process. In order to prepare for a job fair, first off, try to find out who's going to be there, which companies, and which positions they're hiring for. Based off of that list, prioritize who you want to make sure you talk to first. Prepare resumes that are geared towards those specific companies or positions. Print them out and have multiple copies. Develop an elevator pitch. An elevator pitch is a roughly 60 to 120 second description of who you are professionally, what interests you, what you bring to the table as a potential candidate. Be prepared to sell yourself. That might be a little bit awkward for some of us who haven't had sales positions or training and simply aren't comfortable in talking about ourselves in a positive way. Develop a list of questions to ask. Have at least 5 different questions that you can ask about the company or the position that shows that you've done your research and that you are interested in that specific position or in that specific company. And finally, dress to impress. This is an interview environment. You should be dressing as if it was an interview. So business casual or potentially business professional. Once you arrive at the career or job fair, make sure that you get a map if you haven't already done so and approach your priority companies first. Now, one piece of advice that might be helpful is find a company that you definitely don't care about and work out your nerves by talking to them first, briefly, just to go through the process and make sure that you are doing everything that you want to do with the companies that you do care about. Think of it as a dress rehearsal for the main event. You want to make sure you're being assertive. Some booths that you encounter at a career fair could be heavily populated and very in demand. You want to make sure that you are asserting yourself physically, get to the front of the line so that you can greet the recruiter that's there in a confident way. Make sure you provide them with a copy of your resume and collect company information about them. You could even ask about other potential opportunities that are open in the company, especially if the jobs they are advertising that they're hiring for aren't necessarily the best fit for you. Make sure that you ask the recruiter for their business card, get their contact information, and on the back of that, jot down something that was mentioned in the interaction that you had so that you can refer to it later. And finally, before you leave, thank them for their time. After the fair, using the information that you've collected, write thank you emails, maybe even letters. Now, emails are going to get to them quicker, but letters are a really nice touch. And make sure that you're keeping track of when you followed up and how long it's been since the last time you have followed up so that you can follow up with them effectively. If you haven't heard from them within 2 weeks, that's probably a good time to follow up. Here is a list of the workshops that we offer across the state virtually. Bring Your A Game Part 1 and 2. This goes over the personal and interpersonal skills that employers tell us they are looking for in every single candidate that they are considering for employment. Completing your weekly certification covers the steps that are required in order to certify your weekly UI benefit. Create a Great Resume covers some of the basics of resume building. Develop a career plan and research industry trends is there to go over labor market information in more detail, how to develop a career plan, especially if you're looking to switch your careers from one thing to another. As I mentioned before, the Emerge Virtual Workshop is available for anybody with a justice-involved background or criminal conviction in their history that they wish to address in an effective way. Interview 101 covers a start-to-finish interview in a very broad, general way. Maintain a positive attitude is a great workshop for those who are feeling the pressure of this process, especially for those for whom it has been a long time since they were dislocated, or if they've been job searching for a long time and need some practical tips and tricks in order to stay focused and effective. For any veterans who may be listening to this workshop, we just want to thank you for your sacrifice and for your service. We have the Military Members Power Hour, and the topics vary. The mock interview workshop is not a mock interview itself. It is a workshop on how to schedule, how to prepare for, and how to get the most out of the mock interview resources available at your local IowaWORKS office. Navigating ageism in your job search is for those who are 50 or older and are interested in exploring ways to emphasize their experience and de-emphasize any potential questions of ageism. Next level resumes and cover letters go into more detail about resume building, other kinds of application documents, discusses applicant tracking systems versus AI, and does so in a more in-depth way. The Registered Apprenticeship Workshop is there for those who wish to earn while they learn. Instead of paying tuition, you can find out how to go about getting connected with an apprenticeship program that makes you an employee of the company, that pays you a wage, that gives you benefits as an employee, and allows you to earn a certification in a variety of different fields. These aren't just the standard trades, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, etc. Wide variety of potential opportunities there. We have the Smart Planning for Your Money series, which is the first Monday afternoon of every month from 2 to 3. State of Iowa job applications is there to help you understand what the state of Iowa is looking for in an application and apply the best way you possibly can for those state of Iowa jobs. We have Virtual Job Club. A variety of topics are listed: building success in IowaWORKS.gov, business panel, job fairs, LinkedIn, negotiating a successful job offer, power of ONET, and who would you hire. That's every Wednesday at 1:30 to 3. And we also have 2 workshops in Spanish: Essential Tools and Interview and Negotiate. Here is a list of the various IowaWORKS centers available throughout the state of Iowa. We have Burlington, Cedar Rapids, Council Bluffs, Creston, Davenport, Decorah, Denison, Des Moines, Dubuque, Fort Dodge, Iowa City, Marshalltown, Mason City, Ottumwa, Sioux City, Spencer, and Waterloo. I'd like to thank you very much for listening to this workshop. Please consider attending future workshops, either live in a virtual environment or in the recorded formats that you may find them.